The conversation at Thanksgiving dinner took its usual turn about 20 minutes in, right after my sister Brenda finished passing around her phone for the third time. Everyone had already admired the subway tile, the quartz countertops, and that fancy farmhouse sink she'd been planning for months. "This is what real financial security looks like," she announced, zooming in on the chrome fixtures catching afternoon light through her kitchen window. "When you own property, you're building something permanent. Not like some people who just flush $1,500 down the toilet every single month with nothing to show for it." Mom set down the green bean casserole and beamed at Brenda like she'd just won a Nobel Prize. "Your sister has always been the practical one, Stephanie. Very smart about money and planning ahead. She thinks about the future." I kept my eyes on my plate, cutting into the turkey and pretending the cranberry sauce required my full attention. This was standard operating procedure at family gatherings. To everyone seated around this table, I was the screw-up. The one who supposedly worked some dead-end job at a tiny consulting company nobody had heard of, drove a 7-year-old Mazda 3 with a dent in the passenger door, and lived in what they all assumed was a cramped rental apartment on the sketchy side of town. "Speaking of rent," Dad jumped in, sawing at his turkey with unnecessary force, "maybe it's time you started thinking seriously about your future, Steph. You can't keep living like some broke college kid forever. You're 31 years old. Most people your age have equity. They're investing in real estate, not making their landlord rich." Brenda leaned back in her chair with a satisfied little smirk. "I mean, I totally get it. Not everyone has the credit score or the savings for a down payment. The requirements are pretty intense right now. But there are programs for first-time buyers, you know. Even for people in your situation." Every word dripped with condescension. Brenda had always positioned herself as the golden child, the one who had everything figured out down to the last detail. She'd graduated from state with honors in business administration, landed this supposedly prestigious job in pharmaceutical sales, and bought her house at 27 with what she claimed was pure discipline and smart saving. Meanwhile, I was just Stephanie, the quiet one who kept her head down, never seemed to accomplish much, and appeared perfectly content living a modest life that screamed underachiever to anyone paying attention. "The housing market is absolutely brutal right now," Aunt Linda added from across the table, always ready to pile on when the family started dissecting my life choices. "You need solid income, excellent credit, and at least 20% down. It's definitely not for everyone. Some people just aren't cut out for that kind of financial commitment." I nodded politely, took another bite of stuffing. "You're probably right. Don't get me wrong," Brenda continued, clearly loving her moment in the spotlight. "There's nothing wrong with renting. Some people just aren't ready for the responsibilities that come with home ownership. The maintenance, the property taxes, the insurance, the HOA dues. It's a lot to juggle. It requires a certain level of financial maturity." Mom reached over and patted my hand, mixing pity with disappointment in that special way only mothers can. "Maybe you could start small, honey. A little townhouse or something. Work your way up." "If she can even get approved for a loan," Dad muttered, just loud enough for everyone to hear clearly. Dinner dragged on for another 2 hours. More stories about Brenda's promotion to regional sales manager, her ambitious 5-year plan to upgrade to an even bigger house in the suburbs with a 4-car garage and an in-ground pool. I sat there quietly, nodding when someone addressed me directly, playing the role I'd perfected over the years. As I helped clear plates in the kitchen, Brenda cornered me while everyone else migrated to the living room. "I hope you don't take what Dad said personally. He just wants to see you succeed. Build something real. We all do." "I know," I said, scraping leftovers into containers. "If you ever want advice about getting pre-approved for a mortgage, I'd be happy to help. I know this great woman who works with first-time buyers, especially those on tighter budgets. She's very patient with different financial situations." I smiled, thanked her for the generous offer, maintained the mask that had become second nature. The drive home in my dented Mazda gave me time to think about the evening, about the familiar patterns. These family dinners had followed the same script for years now. Brenda would showcase her latest achievement. The family would praise her brilliant financial planning. And I would sit quietly while they discussed my apparent lack of ambition and questionable life decisions. What they didn't know, what none of them had any clue about, was that I'd been paying Brenda's mortgage for the past 2 years. It started innocently enough, the way these things do. Brenda had called me crying about 15 months after buying her house. Through sobs, she explained that her pharmaceutical sales job wasn't as stable as she'd thought. The company was restructuring, her entire division was being eliminated, and she was facing 3 months of unemployment while she searched for something new. "I don't know what to do, Steph," she'd sobbed over the phone, voice cracking. "The mortgage is $3,200 a month. I've got maybe 6 weeks in savings, 8 if I really stretch it. I can't lose this house. Not after everything I did to get it." She'd begged me not to tell the family. Her carefully constructed image as the successful sister was everything to her, the foundation of her entire identity. The thought of mom or dad knowing she couldn't afford her mortgage was unbearable. So I helped. At first, I saw it as temporary. I set up an automatic monthly transfer from my business account to hers, covering that $3,200 mortgage payment while she job hunted. It was supposed to be brief, just until she got back on her feet. But then Brenda found a new job that paid significantly less than her previous position. The sales role at a smaller biotech company offered better stability and growth potential, but came with a brutal $28,000 annual pay cut that made her mortgage payment impossible on her new salary. She kept the house by continuing to accept my monthly payments, framing them as a temporary loan she'd definitely pay back once her situation improved, once she got promoted or found something better paying. That was over a year ago. The payments had continued every single month without interruption. The irony wasn't lost on me. While Brenda delivered lectures about building equity and the benefits of home ownership, I was literally financing her version of the American dream. Every month, I transferred $3,200 to keep her afloat while she basked in the family's admiration for her supposed financial genius. The consulting firm I supposedly worked for was actually cover for my real business, a property management company I'd built from scratch over the past 6 years. I owned 14 rental properties scattered across the metro area, generating enough passive income that I could afford to subsidize my sister's lifestyle without significantly affecting my own financial stability. But explaining that reality would require revealing the entire web of lies and assumptions that had become our family dynamic. Monday morning brought my usual routine of reviewing rental income reports and maintenance schedules. I checked overnight emails from my property manager, Karen, who handled day-to-day operations while I focused on acquisitions and strategy. My 14 properties were performing well, occupancy rates above 96%, rental income climbing with market rates. The Brookside property is getting multiple applications, Karen reported during our weekly call. 4 different candidates, all offering above asking. We could probably get $2,600 instead of the listed $2,400. I approved the increase and moved on to reviewing renovation expenses for a duplex in the Arts District. My phone buzzed with a text from Brenda. "Thanks again for yesterday. Mom loved having everyone together. Super excited about the backsplash. Already thinking about redoing the master bath next. You know how these projects go, there's always something." Smiling face. I stared at that message for a long moment. The bathroom renovation would cost another $18,000 to $22,000. Money she didn't have, that would inevitably get financed through credit cards she'd struggled to pay off. That evening, I made a decision that had been building for months. I called Karen first. "I need you to stop processing the monthly payment from Brenda Patterson for the Brookside property. The $3,200 that's been coming through automatically. Are you sure? I can set up a different payment method if..." "No," I said firmly. "Stop accepting any payments from her. Starting next month." Karen was confused but professional. "Should I send formal notice or will you handle communications?" "I'll handle everything." Next, I called my accountant to discuss tax implications. The monthly payments had been structured as family loans rather than rental income, which simplified reporting. The hardest call was to Brenda herself. "Steph, what's up?" She answered cheerfully. "We need to talk about the monthly mortgage payments," I said without preamble. Her voice immediately became cautious. "What about them? Is there a problem with the transfer?" "They're stopping. Next month will be the last payment." Silence stretched for almost 30 seconds. "What do you mean stopping?" "Steph, I can't. You know I can't afford the full mortgage on my own. My salary isn't enough to cover it plus everything else. I thought we had an understanding." "We did. For 24 months. But I can't keep subsidizing your lifestyle indefinitely." "But I'm finally getting ahead financially," she protested, voice rising. "The bathroom renovation will add value to the house. It's a smart investment. And I'm hoping for a promotion next year that could bump my salary way up." I listened patiently as she explained why this wasn't good timing, how she just needed a few more months to get everything sorted out. The same explanations I'd been hearing for 24 consecutive months. Brenda, I can't keep paying your mortgage while you lecture me about financial responsibility and building equity. What are you talking about? I never lecture you. Last night at dinner, you spent an hour explaining why I should buy property instead of throwing money away on rent. Another long pause. That's different. I was just trying to be helpful. Give you advice based on my experience. Advice about home ownership while I pay your mortgage every month. Her voice became smaller. I appreciate everything you've done. I can't lose this house, Steph. It would destroy me. And if the family found out I've been struggling, that I couldn't actually afford this place. That's not my problem to solve anymore. The conversation ended badly, with Brenda crying and making increasingly desperate promises about revised repayment schedules and realistic timelines. I felt guilty about her distress, but also relieved that the charade was finally ending. 3 days later, Brenda called an emergency family meeting. I need to tell everyone something important, she announced when we gathered at Mom and Dad's house Thursday evening. Her eyes were red-rimmed, and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. What's wrong, sweetheart? Mom asked immediately. Brenda took a shaky breath. I've been having serious financial difficulties. More than I've let on. The truth is, I can't afford my mortgage on my current salary. I've been getting financial help to keep the house. Dad leaned forward. What kind of help? A second mortgage? A bank loan? Stephanie has been paying my entire mortgage for the past 2 years. The room went completely silent. Uncle Frank was the first to speak. Stephanie? The one who? I nodded calmly. The monthly payments were $3,200. I've been covering her complete housing costs since she lost her first job. But you don't even, Dad started, then stopped himself. Own property. Have a successful career. Make enough money to help anyone. Right? I filled in the blanks. Mom looked bewildered. How could you possibly afford to pay Brenda's mortgage? Your job at that little consulting firm. My consulting firm manages $11 million in residential real estate assets. I personally own 14 rental properties. Brenda's mortgage represents about 9% of my monthly rental income. The revelation hit like an explosion. Brenda was crying quietly, embarrassed by the exposure. Dad's face cycled through several colors as he processed information that contradicted everything he thought he knew about my situation. 14 properties. Uncle Frank repeated weakly. Started with a duplex 6 years ago. Used the rental income to qualify for investor loans on additional properties. Pretty standard wealth-building strategy. Karen had prepared a portfolio summary for situations like this, a single page showing property locations, acquisition dates, market values, and monthly income. I pulled it from my purse and placed it on the coffee table. Dad picked up the document with shaking hands. This says your properties are worth over $3.8 million. Current market assessment, I confirmed. Though values have been rising consistently, so that's probably conservative. Brenda wiped her eyes, embarrassment now mixed with something like resentment. I never meant for it to go on this long. I kept thinking I'd get a better job or promotion that would let me pay Stephanie back. Why didn't you tell us Stephanie was helping you? Mom asked quietly. Because you all think she's the family failure, Brenda snapped, embarrassment turning to defensive anger. Every dinner is about how successful I am and how Stephanie needs to get her life together. How was I supposed to explain that the successful sister needed money from the unsuccessful one? The room fell quiet as everyone absorbed the implications. So when you've been giving me advice about building equity, I said to Brenda, letting the sentence hang. I know how it sounds, she said miserably. I just wanted to keep up the image. I worked so hard to buy that house. When I couldn't afford it anymore, I couldn't bear admitting failure. Dad cleared his throat. Stephanie, I owe you an apology. We all do. We've been completely wrong about your situation. Wrong about a lot of things, I agreed calmly. But why didn't you ever say anything? Mom asked. All these years of us thinking you were struggling. Because it didn't matter what you thought about my success. I didn't need your approval to build a profitable business. But I did get tired of funding Brenda's lifestyle while she lectured me about financial responsibility. Uncle Frank was still staring at the portfolio document. You've been carrying all this success quietly while we made assumptions, offered unsolicited advice, treated me like the family disappointment. I shrugged. Real estate investment isn't dramatic. You buy properties, maintain them, collect rent, reinvest profits. It's boring and steady. Doesn't make for exciting dinner conversation. Brenda looked up from her tissues. What happens now with the house? That's your problem to solve, I said firmly. You have 30 days to figure out how to cover your mortgage without my help. I can't afford it on my salary. You know that. Then sell the house. Downsize to something you can actually afford, or find a way to increase your earnings. But I'm not subsidizing your lifestyle anymore. The family meeting ended with uncomfortable silence and half-hearted apologies that felt obligatory. Over the following weeks, Brenda explored her options with growing desperation. She listed the house and started looking at smaller condos within her actual budget. The elaborate bathroom renovation plans were quietly abandoned. At the next family dinner, the entire dynamic had shifted. Instead of Brenda showing off expensive projects and dispensing advice, conversation focused on her downsizing plans. Dad asked thoughtful questions about my real estate operations. Mom wanted to understand how I'd built such a successful portfolio so quietly. I still can't believe you never said anything, Brenda admitted over dessert, voice mixing admiration with resentment. All those times we made comments about your career or your apartment. I live in a one-bedroom because I don't need much space, I explained patiently. My money goes toward acquiring income-producing assets, not lifestyle inflation or impressing people. But you could afford a much nicer place. I could afford a lot of things. That doesn't mean I should buy them. A month later, Brenda found a buyer for her house and purchased a smaller condo within her budget. The equity from the sale paid off her credit card debt and provided a modest emergency fund. It's actually really nice, she told me when I helped her move. Smaller, obviously, but I don't have to constantly worry about payments. And no more pretending to be something I'm not. The family dynamics continued evolving. Dad started asking my opinion on investments. Mom seemed genuinely interested in my business. Uncle Frank had become almost deferential. But the biggest change was in my relationship with Brenda. Without the financial dependence and false appearances, we could finally be honest with each other. The Sunday dinners became more balanced, with everyone contributing rather than one person dominating. Brenda talked openly about her job search for better compensation while I shared updates about acquisitions and market trends. I still feel terrible about taking your money while criticizing your choices, Brenda said during a private conversation months later. It taught me something valuable, I replied. Family support shouldn't come with strings attached, but it also shouldn't enable people to avoid reality indefinitely. Brenda's house sale closed on a Tuesday in March. That evening, she texted me, first mortgage payment on the condo, paid entirely from my own account. Feels amazing. Thank you for everything you did and for finally saying no. The message felt like closure on a chapter that had defined our relationship too long. Brenda was learning to live authentically within her means. I was learning to set boundaries that protected both my finances and my emotional well-being. The family had adjusted to a new understanding of everyone's actual circumstances. No more assumptions about success based purely on appearances. No more lectures about responsibility from someone who couldn't afford their supposedly successful lifestyle. Most importantly, no more monthly transfers to maintain someone else's illusion of prosperity while being treated as the family disappointment. That definitely felt worth celebrating.